Welcome everybody to our webinar on system selection. The title of today's webinar is Blind Betting is not a strategy for selecting a lab informatics system. You should invest in an assessment. My name is Bella Kreklow. I am part of the system selection group here at CSols, and I'm also part of the validation group. I help provide validation of benchtop systems, validation deliverables for enterprise LIMS, system selection services, which we'll be talking about a lot today for LIMS and ELN, requirements for those selections, and business workflows. One of the other major things that I do as part of my job here at CSols is educational services for our clients. So I help educate our clients on their validation needs, and I also provide project management to benchtop projects. As part of our agenda today, we will be discussing what a system selection is and how our process differentiates us. We'll be discussing why an assessment is valuable to an informatics system selection. We'll be talking about picking an informatics solution using data, not unscripted vendor demos, how system selection services can save time and money in the long term, and we'll go over a summary. Throughout this webinar, we'll also be discussing some real-world application of this webinar topic by looking at a few different case studies about how system selection can make sure your organization is placing a smart bet on finding an informatics solution. So what is a system selection? The first step of a system selection is our assessment. This is one of our critical processes in a system selection. This includes a lab tour. This helps give us a visual workflow of your day-to-day business processes. We go through our process briefs. So those are interviews to learn about how you do things in your different groups. We want to go start to finish for your workflow. And then we actually take the information that we get through those process briefs to create as-is and to-be workflows. We'll have workshops with you and your colleagues to make sure that the information collected in those workflows is accurate, to make sure no changes need to be made. And those workflows you will actually have as resources moving forward. The good thing about this assessment is that it gives everyone a voice. So IT, resource management, SMEs, everyone gets full buy-in because their voices are heard through the process briefs during our assessment. After our assessment is completed, we'll go into our URS creation. So the user requirement specification, or URS, is created using the to-be workflows, and we use that to help us determine the system and vendor requirements for selection. Next, our requirements are broken up into categories, and we also assign priority to these requirements. We take those requirements and we generate scripts. And those scripts are drafted for our vendor demos so that all of the vendors are showing exactly the same content, and you're able to see the full workflow using those scripts. Up next, we have our RFP. So the RFP is done to help narrow down vendors that we want to bring in for those demos. This step can be skipped if you as the client already have vendors in mind that you would like to bring in, or experts can help give you a good idea of who can meet your business needs. So sometimes CSols will be able to say, hey, we think you should see this software, this software, and this software, instead of doing the RFP process. Next, we'll move into our vendor demos. So vendors are given the exact same opportunity to demo the scripts as they're written. So the client gets to see the same functionality from each vendor. And those are timed. So once the vendor has used their time, they have to move on to the next script. And then finally, one of the other critical pieces of these system selections are your scoring. So all of your vendor demos are scored, and they're scored in the same way. And that allows the vendor to demonstrate their ability to you, the client, in meeting the required functionality in the scripts. But that's the only functionality that they're going to be able to show you. They're not going to be able to show you all the bells and whistles that they want you to try to purchase. You only see functionality that you need. On the next slide, we'll discuss our first case study and how the assessment portion of the system selection provided our client with some valuable insights about the needs of their organization that they might not have otherwise realized. So here's our first case study. So this client thought that they needed an ELN.